Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine Miriam. She's, what, early 20s, bright, creative, doing well in her career.
Right.
So she calls her mom, excited to share some small win, maybe something good happened at work.
Right.
But instead of, that's great, or even just letting her finish talking, her mom just cuts her off, asks for a glass of water, or, immediately flips it to her own worries, her bad day, completely ignores what Miriam just tried to share.
Yeah, that kind of consistent pattern. That subtle but really persistent shutdown of connection. It feels incredibly specific, doesn't it?
It really does.
And that exact pattern, which is highlighted in the YouTube transcript we're looking at today, it points right to this bigger issue, emotional deprivation. Not always physical neglect, but a deep lack of emotional response from a parent. Often it comes from their own, emotional immaturity.
Right. So that's our mission for this deep dive then, to kind of pull apart the source material and really get what this emotional immaturity looks like in parents. What traits are we talking about? And importantly, what are these specific ways kids get deprived emotionally? Because that seems to cause real psychological damage later on.
Absolutely. And the source is pretty clear about the characteristics. One big one is this deep fear of emotions and intimacy.
Okay.
Because they're just not comfortable with strong feelings their own or anyone else's. They tend to duck situations that might bring them up.
Which explains why saying sorry or taking responsibility is so hard for them.
Precisely, yeah. It means looking inward, and that's uncomfortable territory they'd rather avoid.
That makes sense. If feelings are scary, any conversation that goes there, a child sharing excitement or hurt it, gets shut down fast. The source also says they're often quite rigid. Inflexible.
Yeah, especially under stress. They can get overwhelmed easily, and then, they might lash out, blame others, or just have reactions that seem way out of proportion. And crucially, the source talks about them being very mentally oriented.
What does that mean exactly, mentally oriented?
Well, it means they don't really focus on the actual events that happened. What they value, what's real to them, is only their own interpretation of what happened.
Okay. So back to Miriam's mom.
Right. Miriam shares a fact, her achievement. But the mom doesn't process the fact. She filters it through her own internal state, like, I'm thirsty or I'm worried, and reacts to that, not to Miriam's reality.
Got it. So their internal world dictates everything, kind of overriding yours. The source also mentions they're deeply self-centered, almost like a little kid.
Yes, exactly. Like a young child's view where everything revolves around them, their needs, their desires right now.
And preoccupied.
Constantly, consumed by their own stuff, always mentally judging things based on what they want. And this ties right into the last trait mentioned, attention-seeking.
Like kids needing to be the center of attention.
It makes it really hard for them to truly listen or let someone else have the floor, which of course leaves the child feeling pretty isolated.
So, okay, being raised by someone like this, it creates a very specific kind of emotional lack. The source mentions three main patterns of this deprivation.
It does. The first is a deprivation of love. Now, this is necessarily about basics like food or shelter. It's more about lacking genuine affection and consistent attention that's actually focused on the child.
Because the parent is so focused on themselves.
Exactly. Self-centered, preoccupied, needing attention themselves. So the child misses out on that warmth, that presence, that positive regard directed at them.
Then there's the deprivation of empathy. That sounds huge.
It is. It's that feeling of being constantly misunderstood, unheard.
Yeah.
Like Miriam, sharing news and just getting the subject changed. Your feelings aren't acknowledged or validated. They're just dismissed, ignored, because the parent can't or won't tune in.
Too uncomfortable or preoccupied or self-centered, like you said.
Right. And the third one is a deprivation of support. Not just practical help, but lacking guidance. Feeling like you don't have a reliable person to help you figure things out.
Because the parent is inflexible, avoids responsibility, they can't really step up to guide effectively.
That's the idea. Yeah, they struggle with that role.
And the source is clear, right, that this doesn't just vanish when you grow up.
Oh, definitely not.
Yeah.
It often shows up in adulthood as real struggles in relationships. You might see people swinging between, needing constant validation in one relationship after another.
Or the opposite?
Or the opposite, yeah. Avoiding intimacy altogether because deep connection just feels unsafe. Or maybe even impossible.
So how does someone even begin to heal from that? Does the source touch on that?
It does mention a therapeutic approach.
Yeah.
The thinking is, because the original wound happened in a relationship, the parent-child one, the healing often needs to happen in the context of a safe, secure relationship, too.
Like with a therapist.
Exactly. A healthy therapeutic relationship.
Yeah.
It's about finally having that experience of being truly seen, heard, supported, addressing those unmet needs directly in a safe space.
Kind of like using a healthy relationship to overwrite the old unhealthy patterns?
In a way, yes. It's building a new relational experience.
Okay, so quick recap. We talked about these emotionally immature traits: inflexible, self-centered, afraid of feelings, needing attention.
Right, and how that leads to deprivation of love, empathy, and support for the child.
Which can then lead to adult relationship issues, often addressed through therapy focused on building secure attachment.
And it leaves us with a really interesting final thought from the source material.
Yeah.
If these individuals, the emotionally immature ones, truly value only their own interpretation of reality, what does that actually mean for finding common ground or resolving conflict? Can you ever really reach a mutual understanding?
That's definitely something to mull over. How do you connect when realities fundamentally don't align?
A tough question.